Hilton. If you haven't heard of him, he's the founder of PerezHilton.com. He is an American blogger, columnist, and television personality. Perez, thank you for being here with me. First, we need to talk. Last time you were on with me, people were making fun of what you had on. People were saying you were wearing a blanket or a Snuggie. So if you want to say something to people that were criticizing what you were wearing during our last interview.
Yes, 1 second. It's right here. It's just a shawl, which I like to wear over me because it's nice and comfy. But I thought I'd wear a nice, respectable jacket today for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, you look really nice today. So that kind of looks like a blanket from my end. So that's not a blanket. It's actually something that you would wear out in public.
It's a very blanket-like wrap, very soft, and I love it.
I'm not hating on it. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone else who had complained. I like it. I would wear it. I do have a couple ponchos at home, and I do own a few shawls, so I'm with you on that. So I want to jump in.
Suzanne Summers 3-in-1 poncho, and I love it.
I need one of those. So I want to jump into a story that I found pretty interesting. I'm sure you've heard of him, Bruce Springsteen. He's a singer-songwriter, pretty famous. He's, let's say, not a huge fan of President Trump. I mean, he's probably has a case of Trump derangement syndrome. He's criticized the president. He's called him dangerous. I mean, he's pretty much called him every name in the book. And in a recent interview, he said that he can't think of one Democrat that could beat Trump in 2020. What's your reaction to that?
I disagree. I think it could be an unexpected Democrat, just like Donald Trump was an unexpected Republican. Before he ran for president, he didn't identify as a Republican, and people oftentimes switch political parties. I would be very interested in exploring, reading more about, and possibly even supporting somebody like Mike Bloomberg if he decided to run as a Democrat.
Oh, boy.
I think there's a lot of options out there.
Yikes. So name-wise, I've heard people talking about Beto O'Rourke. By the way, his name is not Beto. That's just a nickname he goes by, which I think he was using just to pander to Latinos, but, that's just me. We've heard about a third run for Hillary Clinton. We've heard about Bernie Sanders. We've heard about Senator Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker. What do you think about any of these people that I just named?
I would be very excited with any of those because they have experience. I would be less excited for another run by Hillary, even though I fully love her and supported her in 2016. I really wouldn't be that excited either with Beto O'Rourke, just because he's coming off a loss, okay? I want somebody that will win, ideally. That's the goal. Of all of those names, perhaps the one that I am most excited about is Cory Booker for many reasons. First and foremost, I would say Republicans may disagree with Cory Booker on a lot, but he's a nice guy, right?
No. Can you name one thing that he's accomplished?
I know that he's done a lot for his state of New Jersey. I'm not from there, so I could not specify, but I know that he did a lot in terms of really turning around the education system in New Jersey and making education better there for young Americans, which I think is a good thing. I could be wrong about that, but I do know I have heard that about him.
Okay.
I don't know too many specifics about the policies that he has enacted, but all I said is he seems a nice guy. He seems to me as a person who has voted in the past with a lot of Democrats, somebody that is mostly scandal-free. He's not done extremely awful things that I'm aware of off the top of my head. And he does have experience. He has been a senator for a while now, more experience than somebody like Kamala Harris, whom I enjoy as well. And I think she's great representing me here from the state of California.
I think Cory Booker missed his calling, which was the days of our lives. Like, he's such an actor. I can't name one thing great that he's done. I think that he's extremely divisive. He runs on racial politics. Like, that's his go-to. That's why I can't stand him. And I'm glad that we do agree on Beto O'Rourke. So, by the way, his real name is Robert Francis. And like I said, he's using that name Beto in Texas, and he's been using it in all of his political campaigns to try to get the Latino vote, which I find very offensive. And the fact that all of that money was poured into his Senate campaign in Texas, I mean, I think that was one of the most expensive Senate races in the country, and he still lost. So I think that it is a sign that if he ran for president, it wouldn't be a good turnout. As for Michael Bloomberg, like I said, I'm not a fan, but mostly policy-wise. But how do these people compare to President Trump when the economy's doing well, the world didn't end like people said? I mean, despite how you feel about him as a person, I think people don't like the way that he speaks or that he's very honest, which sometimes is offensive and people say it's not presidential. Like, what does that have to do with his policies and him moving our country forward?
Well, you know what? I just despise him as a person. And even if there is another Republican who will agree with Donald Trump on every single policy point, if I had to vote, I would vote for that other Republican. I would rather another Republican go into the White House than a Democrat if it meant somebody other than Donald Trump, okay? For me, I am a single issue voter in the upcoming election. That is anyone but Donald Trump. That's
nuts. I do remember seeing your video. You were like actually crying on YouTube when Trump won, which I was just blown away.
Because you are responsible for voting for Donald Trump. I can't believe this. What the fuck? If it were anybody else, anybody, Ted Cruz, I would have sucked his dick. Anybody but Donald Trump. Oh, I wish it was 2012. Mitt Romney is such a sensible guy.
Can you say with a straight face that he hasn't had a good presidency so far?
I would say that he is definitely not presidential. He is not putting out positive messages out there for young Americans. He may be enacting policy that you like, but he is not a leader that inspires from the top down, in my opinion.
No, I think a lot of people would argue with that. I mean, they don't care what he's saying or how he's saying it. He is getting things done. It's not really an opinion. I mean, if you look at the numbers, if you look at where we're going as a country, I don't think you can argue with that. But I want to jump to another topic. This one I found really interesting. So I'm sure you believe in climate change and you're really worried about, the temperatures of the earth rising, right? You care about climate change?
Yeah, but you don't believe in climate change?
I do believe that the weather will change. It's happened over time. I mean, we went through the ice ages and there was no cars then and actually, I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me what the perfect temperature on Earth would be. So when it's warmer or cooler someplace, it's warmer and cooler in another place. So I don't believe in man-made climate change, and I don't believe that we should be taxed to death because of all of these studies that really don't show anything. Like you just can't prove it. So, but I will. The big issue here that I have is all of these people that fear-monger about climate change the most. Would be like Bernie Sanders, for example. He said, this is a quote from him. He says, "Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our planet." Meantime, in the past month, he spent $300,000 flying private. Like, talk about a large carbon footprint. So all these people like Al Gore, Bernie Sanders, a socialist, who's constantly complaining about all this stuff, telling us that we need to live a different way, like they're living a completely different way. Like, my carbon footprint will never compare to Bernie Sanders. I don't have multiple mansions. I don't fly private. So if they want to lecture us, then, they need to live the life that they're telling us to live. Like, if he lived in a teepee, then I would listen to him. But don't you find this offensive when our politicians are telling us one thing, yet they do another?
Well, first, I, as a non-Republican, need to acknowledge that there are a lot of Republicans who do believe in climate change and that us humans have contributed to that in a negative way. Former President George H.W. Bush, amongst those people, he even enacted policies to help this country be greener and counter climate change before we were even calling it climate change. Having said that, do I find what Bernie Sanders does in regards to this offensive? No. Replace the word politician and substitute it for celebrity. I've said this before and I believe this. I would rather a celebrity do good things, be charitable, help others, even if they're just doing it for positive publicity, than not do it at all. Because at the end of the day, at least they're doing something positive.
Yeah, but
that's my take on it.
But what's positive, like if you looked at like the climate accord, really at the end of the day, it was just another tax on the regular middle class Americans. And I guess people around the world, if you will, although America got the short end of the stick. You see the people rioting in Paris over the gas tax. So, I mean, all of this at the end of the day, it's all about raising taxes. I'm for a clean environment. I think that we should do more. We want clean beaches. We want clean air.
Clean drinking water.
Clean drinking water. I'm for all that, but we have to find a balance where people aren't out of work over science that really, I don't really believe in it. And there's really no proof. Like, can you tell me what the perfect temperature on Earth would be? And like over 100 years, I think that the temperature has gone up like 1 degree.
Yeah, well, I think,
and it could go back down.
Change, one specific thing that a lot of conservatives like to clamor around, but the bigger picture isn't even just climate change. It's being good to the environment. It's being a less polluting country. It's making sure that every child in America, especially those in places like Flint, Michigan, have access to clean drinking water. It's all hand in hand. And, some people have to get taxed more to make sure that we are doing everything we can to treat this land that we live on as best as we can.
But don't you think Sanders should be living and leading by example? I mean, the fact that he's flying private when he doesn't need to, and he has multiple mansions, I mean, what does that say?
I could care less about Bernie Sanders.
I
did
care
not vote
because
for him
he's saying that climate change is the single greatest threat facing our planet, yet he's not personally doing anything about it in his own life. He just wants to raise the taxes on everyone else so they have to pay for it.
I don't care for Bernie Sanders. I think that he is not, I wouldn't call him a hypocrite, but he is somebody that espouses a lot of things that I don't believe in either. I would not consider myself a socialist. My parents fled communism, left Cuba, and some would call that a socialist state. I would call it a communist state. That's why even the idea of somebody like a Mike Bloomberg is exciting to me for 2020. I want somebody that can deliver results and have change that is achievable. With Bernie Sanders and a lot of the, you mentioned high taxation, this, that, or the other. One of the issues that I had with him in 2016 where he had a lot of ideas, but not extremely well thought out ideas with very little follow through execution, and just pie in the sky. I don't believe in pie in the sky. I want realness.
Yeah, a candidate like Bernie Sanders would have taxed you out of business. And based on your career, I mean, it looks like you love capitalism, you're an entrepreneur, and you're pretty successful. So you would have been completely destroyed by someone's policies like a Bernie Sanders and even like Elizabeth Warren or any of the Democratic potential challengers for 2020. A lot of them are extreme leftists with extreme policies. I don't even know what they would run on. Really quickly, like what would be the Democratic platform for 2020? Like what are they signaling? Like what would they run on?
Well, it can't be experience because that wasn't enough to get Hillary Clinton in the White House. I think you run anti-Trump, in my opinion. It's like anybody but Trump is the motto.
Well, I think that Hillary Clinton tried that too, and that didn't work. So I want to jump over to a different topic, Christmas related. I'm sure you've heard all of the criticism of Melania Trump's Christmas decorations at the White House. I want to say that I did go to the White House. The Daily Caller was invited. We got to check them out in person. I thought they were beautiful. I've never been one to criticize the Christmas decorations in the White House ever. I don't see why it would be such a news story. I was looking at some of the headlines. They were calling it the Christmas of death, the Christmas trees of death. They compared it to a scene from The Shining, which is a horror movie. I mean, you name it. And I just find it really sickening that we can't put away our, partisanship just for a second to appreciate something that shouldn't be controversial.
I don't think it's that deep. I think people were being funny. I could care less about Melania's Christmas decorations as well. And that is a correct way to say that expression. Both are correct. I couldn't care or I could care less are both accurate, FYI. I actually believe that Melania's blood forest was very reflective of her personality and her demeanor. It was cold to me. It didn't radiate warmth from all of the photos that I saw. And that's Melania. She's not a warm, fuzzy first lady. She's very Eastern European, cold. And I'm not saying that as a diss. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes those personalities get things done and are able to stay cool under pressure, especially if you're married to somebody like Donald Trump, where there's a lot of negative attention going his way into that White House every single day.
Okay, so let's say Michelle Obama, she decorated with the red trees of death or whatever people were calling them. There's no way that you would go on camera and say the same exact thing. You'd be like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so warm and fuzzy.
No,
I love Michelle.
I would say,
let's be real here. And Michelle could have, it could have been Michelle Obama.
I wouldn't say cold. I would actually say something inappropriate. I'd say, oh, it reminds me of like a period or something. I didn't say that about Melania. I would have gone for a bad joke with Michelle Obama.
I really don't believe that anyone would criticize Michelle Obama. Had she decorated this White House exactly the same as Melania Trump, everyone would be praising her. She'd be on the cover of Vogue. You'd probably throw her a bone there on PerezHilton.com. There's no way. No one will ever criticize anything Michelle Obama does.
I mean, okay.
And I have a feeling, I didn't do my research on this, but I have a feeling that you used to like Melania Trump before her husband ran for president.
I mean, I enjoyed a lot of her modeling work, especially the nude variety, which
She's beautiful.
I still like to look at those photos every once in a while for giggles.
I don't know why people bring that up. That's not even fair because a lot of models do nude shoots, and that's nothing new. I mean, women's bodies are celebrated. It's beautiful. All the runway shows are with it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
And now people criticize her for that. She didn't know that she was going to be the first lady, and that was her job. And that's what we have embraced and have celebrated as this culture, whether we like it or not. So that's why I'm not fazed by it. I don't think it reflects poorly.
It's a Kardashian world, and Donald Trump is in the White House.
It is. So, like I said, Melania Trump, she's classy, she's beautiful, and the only reason she gets this bad rap is because people don't like that her husband is the president.
And also because, her whole campaign is anti-bullying, which doesn't really jive with her bullying husband's tactics.
Well, Melania's not a bully.
Agree that a lot of his tactics are bullying.
Okay, but Melania Trump is an individual, and if she is passionate about her cause, she has the right to push her cause. So,
sure.
Who has Melania Trump bullied? Is she bullying anyone?
Well, in the past, she bullied Michelle Obama's husband, Barack Obama.
Melania
she was a
Trump
birther
did?
conspirator herself, Melania Trump, along with Donald Trump.
I think that's fake news. I don't ever remember hearing about that.
Oh, there's video
of Melania Trump accusing
yes.
Obama of being birthed. I'm going to have to look into this, and we'll talk about that
video.
next time. I don't remember that. So that's the only time. Also, like, speaking of bullies, like, that's what you do for a living. Like, you are the online celebrity blogger, and you literally troll and wreck celebrities all day long. You love bullying.
Donald Trump and I have a lot in common. Maybe I'll be the one in the White House in
Yeah, like, how can you criticize? You're like the celebrity version of Donald Trump.
We have a lot in common. I would not have voted for me in the White House or Donald Trump.